This is the ancient teaching of alchemy. So, where do we begin? I want to talk about, I don't know, have you guys heard about alchemy before? Just like it's like, you know, like what people did in the Middle Ages, this sort of thing, you know what I mean? No? Perhaps? Yeah. That's really got nothing to do with it. Really, you know, no one really knows what they did, yeah, because they were supposedly a whole bunch of really intelligent men and women who spent all their time sitting in basements trying to make, trying to get rich by converting lead into gold. But that's a bit of a sus story, if you understand what I mean. I think they spend a lot of time in basements, and that's what I'm going to talk about. They spend a lot of time just with each other, and that's what I'm going to talk about, because this is the point. Okay, so what we're talking about tonight is the linking or the uniting of sex and spirituality. And although I'm going to talk a lot about the sexual act and the importance of the spirituality in the sexual act, that also actually extends entirely to relationships as well. I think that people tend to be a little less holistic about these things and tend to talk about one or the other, and it has to be both, if you understand what I mean. But that'll make sense as we go on. So what we're talking about here when we talk about alchemy is we're talking about white tantra. Yeah, this is the act of a sexual union used for a spiritual purpose. It's about linking spirituality and sexuality. Now, it's important to understand that there has always been a sort of a union there. In fact, someone commented actually on the little reel I put up. They were like, "Why is it that, you know, why is it that you're talking about sex? It's got nothing to do with it." And I was like, well, actually, it's kind of got everything to do with it. The whole of society, 100% moves around sex. Like, I mean, literally, everything. That's why you go to parties. Do you know what I mean? Why do you go to a party? Okay, once you have a couple, you sort of go there, but that's different. But generally speaking, go to a party, you're trying to meet somebody. Yeah, you want to have a relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend. If you watch a movie and there's not a love interest, it just sucks. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever watched a film where they just didn't put it? That's why they put a love interest in terrible films. Like, you know, you watch like a big violent film, they still have the love interest. And if you don't put it in there, it's just like a bro flick and no one wants to watch it. What was that one with Russell Crowe where they're just on a boat the whole time? Is it Master and Commander? And like no one went to watch it. Because it's just Master and Commander. It's just two guys on a ship and everybody got bored. Yeah, because no one gets together. They don't have the beautiful kiss at the end. Although that became more and more intense as time went on, you know. Let's not go there. So anyway, what I'm trying to point out is it's the hub. It's the hub. Everything moves around it. Yeah. Even the unity of the family is based on the sexual union. Man and woman come together in order to create a child. That's literally a generative sexual union. Yeah. We don't have. So what I'm trying to do here is actually take away the stigma there. So when we're talking about sexuality, you know, and spirituality united, I'm talking about creative unity, something really quite profound, yeah? That we ourselves are born of sexual unity. And honestly, often the further away we get from just the simplicity and naturalness of that, the more that we think that's weird, yeah? The more that people kind of go, oh, it's a weird, is the more they've actually lost just the naturalness, the simplicity of what it means to just be something that was created from sexual unity, from creative unity. And I won't go deep into it in tonight's lecture, but we'll mention it a little bit. But that's why if you ever see any sort of like talks about the creation of the universe in various mythologies and in various schools and in various religions, there is always a sexual element, or there is always a strong element of water and all this sort of stuff. There is always some innuendo there, if you understand. And so really, that's what I want to talk about. So usually this is the sort of thing we talk about towards the end of our course, but you know, the reality is in society, everyone talks very freely about this now. So I thought, why not? Yeah, why not? So again, alchemy is the wise combination of sexual enjoyment with spiritual yearning. Now I'll say there's two sort of areas here. Yeah. When this guy says to me, oh, well, why are you guys wanting to talk so much about sex? Why are you trying to put this thing together? I've seen that there are two areas. In reality, religion and all spirituality is extremely concerned with sex all the time. In two ways. One, in the sort of normal Byron Bay movement, where we go, it's so good, it's spiritual. Do you know what I mean? That was such a good one that it's a spiritual, man. And a lot of people, when we're talking about white tantra, think we're talking about really good sex, like the best sex you can have. You know, it was so good, it was spiritual. You know, it was like it transcended normal sex and it just went onto another plane, man. You know, and I've been here for a while, and I tell you that's how we talk around. That's how a lot of people talk around here. And on the other side, you've got the people who, you know, the priests and all that sort of thing, where sex is so good, it's a sin. You know what I mean? It's so good that it distracts me. It's a sin. But both of them, it's still all about sex, whether they want it to be about or not, because everything is, man. It's the whole point. Even scientists say it's all about sex. What do scientists say the point of being a human being is? Finding the appropriate mate so that you can continue to generate the species. It's the same. Literally everything. The entire theory of evolution is sexual. So what I want to do there is talk about what real white tantra is, yeah? So just as I said, the person saying, oh, it was so good, it was spiritual, that's not quite right, because spiritual yearning is something a little more profound. And the person, for instance, who knows how to pray effectively, like a monk who really understands prayer, not like an angry monk who looks at everyone else and says, I don't have anything, I'm sitting in a room all day, I'm itchy, I'm cold, and I just want a woman. I hate you, you know, because you have everything I have, you're not cold, you have a woman, and you're not itchy, yeah? No, I'm talking about the one who actually has a real spiritual feeling inside. I used to know a chaplain like that in one of my old schools who really had a love for the divine, for God. He had something inside his heart really real, you know. But then he looks at sex as something dirty because he doesn't understand it, because he can't control himself, etc., etc. When in reality, we're talking actually about uniting those things. And so the person who then says, the spiritual and the sexual enjoyment is so good at spiritual, that's also incorrect, because it's still not spiritual. It can be really good, but that doesn't make it spiritual. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how that becomes a thing, how we actually unite those two into one. That's what alchemy is all about. It's about the uniting of spiritual yearning. You understand? Yearning, the feeling inside of you that wants to find the truth. Do you know what I mean? I don't just mean, because it's tricky. You know, you say things like this. You talk about trying to have a spiritual feeling nowadays, and it's a minefield out there now. Everyone's like, I'm spiritual every day, man. You know, I have spiritual sensations every day. I go to a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies. I know what it means to be spiritual. You know what I mean? These are all these. It's getting very hard now to determine a true spiritual understanding. So I repeat to you, that feeling inside of you that wants to know the truth, like why you're really here, that's a spiritual sensation. Yeah. What's the point of it all? Do you feel that way sometimes? I saw something today, I shouldn't mention, but I can't help it. Because they did this whole Instagram ad thing, they're trying to sell Threads to me now. I don't really understand what Threads is. I assume I don't know what Threads, do you guys know what Threads is? It's like Twitter, but it didn't work. Anyway, they're trying to sell Threads to me. and it just popped up. It said, you know, I'm keeping an eye on the phone today because I was wanting to see if people wanted to come to tonight's class. And this thread popped up. I opened it up, said, you might be interested in this. And it says, I'm 30, I'm alone, I don't know where I'm going, I feel like my life is pointless. I can't be the only one feeling this, right? With 10,000 responses saying, yeah, I feel this way. And other people saying, I'm 40 and I feel this way. Other people saying, because the person said, I don't have a house or anything, they'd say, oh, well, I had a house and I still felt this way. And I really wanted to write back and be like, but I feel I'd just be lost in the threads, I guess, of threads. Anyway, I feel like I'd be lost and say, no, what you really want is a connection to something inside. What you're looking for is the truth. That's why you feel like everything's pointless. Not because you need a car or you specifically need to have, okay, you've reached this age, you should have this many kids. Yeah? I have 5 kids, just before you guys freak out. I might mention it later on. You might have a strong impression and go, oh, so you can have that right now. And, you know, but yeah, like, that's not it. You know, I have 5 kids and I tell you kids don't necessarily make you happy. They don't make you sad either. Just to be crystal clear. Just to be clear. No, that's not how it works. Yeah, and I'm not saying they make or break a life. I'm just trying to point out to you that we need to have a spiritual reality. You need to have a spiritual identity, a spiritual movement inside, and that searching for the truth is the beginning of that, looking for something real in a world of falsity and illusion. Yeah, that's what that is. So we're talking here about spiritual yearning, the yearning for something more, the yearning for something outside of just the normal status quo, and actually uniting that with sex. That's what we're talking about. So, okay. So there is a beautiful saying that sex has the power to liberate or enslave mankind, that is, man and woman. And of course, this is how it is. I mean, it's the most powerful thing around. It's not just the thing that we talk about. It's not just the thing in all of our movies. It's not just the thing that sort of unites everything and also makes or breaks the whole of every person's life. Whether or not a person gets married or enters into a long-term relationship is a very important part of their life, all these sorts of things, Whether or not we then go to form a unity and create a family, all this sort of stuff. It has that power over us, if you understand what I mean. It has that immense power. You can see a person is made or broke. As I said, a person, for instance, entering into like a beautiful marriage where they're truly in love with each other, a person entering into a long relationship with someone they really love, can make a life. Do you know what I mean? A whole life can be paradise just on the back of that. A whole life, you know what I mean? And by the same token, a person entering into a relationship that's not real, where they actually don't love each other, say for instance for money or just for vanity because they look good, just purely out of sexual attraction, but not out of love, can destroy a life. And I mean completely ruin a person. Do you know what I mean? When I was looking through that thread, there was a guy there saying that, yeah, I got married, I had all these kids, I had all this house and everything, and then that's it. I broke up and it totally destroyed my life, and I realized I was miserable for every day of my life. So a person can become, that's where you hear all those jokes of, the old boy on a train and all this sort of stuff, because the person is actually really quite, okay, hopefully they're just joking and they're actually deeply in love. But if not, it's because it breaks life. That's just in a marriage sense. Look at all of the advertisements. Have you not seen? I mean, the entire of Instagram is just sexual advertisements, one after another, Or it's like more insidious ones. It's selling you a life, Look how happy I am. If only you could live this way. If only you had a $3 million house in Bali and you're a tech nomad, wouldn't you be happy? It's selling all this stuff, but it uses sex, yeah? You see the guy so nicely, he's perfectly worked out on this sort of thing, the girl in her perfect athleisure, and you go, I could be that. Yeah, it's designed so the man goes, I could be that man. The woman goes, I could be that woman. We could be like that. Look how lovely their children are. We could have lovely children. We could be happy. Yeah? So this, again, is using the power of sexuality. It can enslave people. People are enslaved to this sort of thing. They can't stop scrolling because they're enslaved, yeah? You know what I mean? You want to get off it. I think it's hilarious just how many advertisements there are to get off using Facebook or Instagram. Isn't that like kind of silly? Whenever I see it, I go, oh man, this is a bit awkward. You know what I mean? I'm gonna click on something in Facebook to help me get off Facebook. I mean, this is just a mess. Like what? Like how did we get here? I start to feel that way. Yeah, and they use all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? So, and again, but always we see that enslaved. We're enslaved by the sexual sensations. And I'm not going to go into it tonight, but even to a degree, that's the whole thing. We get addicted to the sensations of life, and sensation. The ultimate, the mother of all sensation, is the sexual sensation. You know what I mean? The orgasm is the strongest sensation. And this is the thing, we get addicted to this, and then everything becomes a different sensation to us. And that's sort of how that psychology works. Constantly wasting your life, one sensation after another, is the same psychology there, which we'll talk about it a bit. So, as I said, this is what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about, this power that sex has. And that's because, as I said, that is what we are. Every single person on this planet, every single one, this was what I said in that advertisement, every single one of us is born of the seed, is raised by the sun, yeah, and becomes, in that sense, both fruit and seed. Every single one of us. That's what happens. We literally are born of the sperm and the egg, no matter which way it happened. I mean, it can get complicated nowadays. That sperm and egg can be extracted and then kind of like fluffed around with it in a laboratory. And then, I shouldn't have mentioned that. I'm just going to cut that out. But you know what I mean? Like, all that can happen, but in the end, it's still the same thing. It's still a sexual unity. And then we grow, and everything comes from that. I mean, that's what we came from. That's what we were in the beginning. And in the end, everything we came from that. Sure, our mind developed in different ways, but our mind still is a product of the original unity of sex. And then inside of myself, I'm given that same seed. And all the living creatures are exactly the same. Everything that lives under the sun as the product of the seed and then has within itself the potential to create again. So everything has that creative substance. And without the sun, it doesn't exist. Nothing exists without that. That's why it's kind of scary when you hear these stories about, I shouldn't talk about conspiracy anymore. You know, like, what is it Bill Gates saying? He's going to block out the sun because it's too hot. He's going to stop global warming by putting some dust in the atmosphere. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, I don't want to be that guy, but have you seen The Matrix? Do you remember when they block out the sun in The Matrix? Anyway, I don't know. It's kind of messy, right? I mean, that was an important movie as a 9-year-old. I was like, whoa. But I don't really want to see it come true, you know? But the whole point, without the sun, we're kind of screwed. So it's really quite important. And if you look in all of these religions and mythologies, I loved studying mythology as a child, they're all solar worship. The whole lot of them. Even Christianity's solar worship. You see this with the halo. Or in fact, people who try to debunk different religions often use that. Yeah, the Zeitgeist, for instance, the fantastic film talking about how all religions just come from Egypt, points out that every single modern religion and mythology has solar worship. Every single one of them, in one way or another, worships the sun through a Christic element, an idea of a savior coming, and that savior always comes from the sun. So that power, that creative power we have, it comes from the sun. That's where it comes into it. And every day we're renewed. And we know that. I love that we live here in Byron Bay and the solar culture is so obvious. Yeah. You go outside, like, I don't know, did you guys go outside today? It was beautiful, right? It was a lovely day. I was oiling a deck. You can see it on my hands. And it was a lovely day. It was so beautiful outside for most of the morning. Yeah. Wonderful. Because the sun was out and it breathes life into you. You feel it. You feel the energy, that power, that force coming into you, you know? And so we have that same creative power inside of ourselves. We have it inside of our sexual fluids. And that's the same power that can create, that can bring life into the world. Something really, really quite profound. So, okay. So this is what the alchemy does. The alchemy aims to use that creative power, not just for the generation, the generative power that can create a new body, but that power inside of you also has a regenerative quality. Meaning that if that sexual fluid is worked within ourselves, that sexual energy that both genders have, there's a lot of stuff talking about sperm and that often confuses people, but man and woman, that power that we have, that creative power, can actually regenerate our whole organism. And it's that creative power that actually opens the doors to real spiritual experience. So when the guy says, wow, that was so amazing, it was spiritual, he's kind of not wrong. There is a great truth in that's actually a connection that we have, that creative power, that creative force, yeah? But it's a little more to it than just that, yeah? So this power that we have inside our sexual organs, this generative and creative power, yeah, is unlocked through the practice of white tantra or alchemy, which, to keep it very short, starts when we retain our sexual fluids. So we're taught in society to lose them all the time because that's the best and biggest sensation that you can have. Yeah, lose your sexual fluids, have the orgasm, reach the ejaculation, and finish with your fluids. That's it. The problem with that, again, is we're always expending that creative energy. We lose that energy. Not only does it cause a physical stress upon the body because the body has to actually regenerate itself. Yeah, more so in men than women, but still. What happens is that we're losing creative energy. Creative powers that we have that can do an amazing thing. So to practice alchemy means that we're going to start using that sexual energy and we're going to start by retaining it. So rather than when we have a normal sort of sexual encounter, yeah, and oh my God, I should have drawn this first. Okay, when we have a normal sort of sexual encounter, we have sexual intercourse, yeah, it's going out. down and out. That's what's happening. Our energy goes down and out of our body. It's lost from our body constantly. And what we're actually trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to transform that to go the opposite direction. We call this centrifugal. It means it's sort of going away from us, away. And we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying through the complete physical way of just not reaching that. That's the beginning of that. And there's a lot of stuff online. If I talked about this, in fact, I've been a lecturer for many, many years, 17 years. When I first started talking about this, you would mention this to people and they would be like, he's insane. He's a crazy man. Lock him up. He's demon possessed. Nowadays, using the term sexual retention, well, I believe 50 Cent talks publicly about semen retention. I believe that, you know what I mean? Jim Carrey talks about semen retention, yeah? So to mention that, in that sense, isn't so much of a scary thing anymore, yeah? Because, seriously, I talk about this and people will be like, whoa. I'm being serious. But if I start doing this, am I going to explode? No, straight up. Like, you have no idea how many men ask me, mate, if I don't shoot at least once a week, I'm going to blow up. Serious, like that's going to be serious, And you're trying to tell me I'm going to get in there with my lady and then get right up and close to that point and then just walk away. I tell you, I'm going to explode. You know what I mean? Yeah. And now there's a little bit of truth to this. Let's explain it. You're not going to blow up. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. That's just a normal masculine way of thinking. But that's not it. Yeah. So just retaining it is the beginning of that process, right? And that's what's being taught a lot. The whole no fap movement talks a lot about that. It's very big in the, what's it called? Red pill, Jim Bro movement, etc. We talk a lot about that sort of stuff. And that's good. That's the beginning of it. That's the beginning. We start to hang on to it. Yeah, the guy's trying not to lose his energy and women the same. And that's the beginning. We're beginning to work in the physical, right? But to actually create this requires more than just retention. It actually requires something that we talk about very strongly, and this is actually, the word alchemy is talking about transmutation. Yeah, this is the point. So to actually, sure, if we just hang on to that all the time, it's true, it's actually going to drive us quite crazy. And you kind of have seen this in monks and nuns and all this stuff. They kind of go a bit mad. I know you're not supposed to say that because everyone's equal and fantastic, but it's true. Yeah, people in a convent, they go nuts. You know what I mean? If you read old books, there's stories about people having complete hallucinations and stuff, and when they go in and figure it out, it's usually because of sexual infatuation. A girl entering the nunnery at a young age, not really knowing why she's there, seeing the nice boy across working in the garden, and then starting to thinking she's demon possessed because she's having these sexual feelings and she's repressing them. So, as I said, we start by retaining, but what we actually need to do is transmute. So we have, it's my son Rowan finding a reason to come to class. So what we want to do is actually transform that. If we just leave it there, it's going to get lost. In men, this is the nocturnal emission that happens a lot when men start trying to sort of work with their energies, their sexual fluids. They just tend to lose them anyway, and that becomes complicated. But so what we need to do is transmute it, and that means to transform it from one substance into another. So we're actually taking this energy from it that is a raw substance, and we're moving it up. And we're transforming it. So we're, instead of going down and out, we're going in and up. Yeah. Now, so we're taking this prime material, this is the sexual fluid, and then we're transmuting it. And so that is explained in alchemical terms, meaning in the old way of talking, as raw mercury, meaning we have this creative energy, this creative fluid, physical fluid, and we want to actually transform it back into energy. So we want to actually harness that energy. Now, you can do this part, just this beginning part, you can do a little bit of this just as a single person using certain breathing exercises. And this is what is taught in some schools, but very strongly here in Gnosis, where we teach the practice of what we call hamsa or pranayama, where we breathe our energy in and we actually feel that, like we feel a physical muscle pull and breathing in, and moving that energy, we're actually moving, we're transmuting. We're taking that energy from inside the sexual center and moving it up to the brain like that, which is the what do you call it? The mystery of the shepherd's crook. The mystery that the Egyptians had, why a priest always held a shepherd's crook, because we're moving it like that, up around, and transmuting it like this. And the same thing can be done in the sexual act between a man and woman. When we feel the sexual sensations, we can, using breathing, we can move them. Now, again, this is just the beginning, because what I'm doing is I'm taking a physical thing and I'm turning it into an energy. So I'm taking, and we actually, in Gnosis, we use the term metallic soul, meaning I'm actually removing the astral counterpart, or removing the internal counterpart of it, and I'm transmuting it back into an energy. But the full alchemy, that's just breathing techniques. That's not really alchemy. That's just a breathing technique that anyone can do, yeah? Alchemy itself is to then transmute that mercury into a higher degree. The mercury the wise, or I should have written on here, mercury plus sulfur. And this is to actually take it to an even higher degree. But what we're actually doing is we're actually, in that process of transmutation, we're actually transforming it from one substance into another. Yeah? This only happens in one other thing in the whole world, which is a nuclear reactor. Nuclear reactor is the only thing that actually performs transmutation. It takes the substance of uranium, heats it to a massive degree, turns it into pure energy, and then it becomes a new element, plutonium. And that's exactly what we can do. So between man and woman, we actually have a nuclear reactor, because we can transform the sexual fluid into an energy, and then it can go into regenerating the body. I'm not going to go deeply into it tonight, but it can also go into creating our internal bodies. If you want to go to the astral, for instance, using this process of alchemical transmutation, the sexual energy actually goes into powering the astral body, helping you to go to the astral at night much more easily. Yeah, and over time, what we talk about it, what we call the esoteric path, many spiritual vistas open up to us through this simple practice, right? Now, however, one of the most obvious transformations of that is that we can actually regenerate the brain. Now, in our normal sort of scientific way of thinking, everyone says that brain cells, once you lose them, that's it. Do you know what I mean? That's it. You lose brain cells, they're done. I don't know. Has everyone seen the movie Waterboy? That's a terrible example. But they have like the brain cell meter of that guy. He keeps getting hit in the head, and then finally it's like he's got one left. You know, it's like that. And I always used to think about that as a kid. I was like, so if I just bash my head repeatedly on a table, is that it? Like, it's like, how many exact knocks of the head will it require before I'm like an invalid? Like how like what's the mathematics upon that, right? Let's understand it. So anyway, when we transmute, yeah, in the practice of alchemy, it can't be done by a single person. This has to be a man and a woman united, just like we would unite to just to have sex, yeah, to have a normal sexual experience, right? Or to have a child if we're going that far, but even just a normal sexual act, right? And it has to be man and woman. I know you probably say, oh, but why man and woman? Why can't? Well, because it's creative. That's just the way it is. I'm working with sexual creative energies here. That's why. It's not like a prejudice thing. It's just the way it is. And so when man and woman are united that way, then we can actually transform that fluid, goes up, and it actually becomes an energy, passes up the spine, and then actually goes and regenerates the brain. Meaning a person can regenerate those cells of the brain. A person can actually begin to charge the brain with force and energy, with creative force and energy. Yeah? At the moment, people want to be creative, they just usually take drugs. Someone wants to write a new film script, they're like, I'm going to need a lot of LSD. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I want it to be a colorful epic. We're going to be Fantastic Five. You know, it's going to be really colorful, so I'm going to take a lot of LSD. You know what I mean? That's creative. Not really. Yeah? If a person was able to completely unlock all the creative energy in their brain, the person would be a genius, yeah? And that's what you see when you look at history, these really, really intelligent individuals, really profound world teachers and spiritual mystics, they had a regenerated brain. Yeah, they knew this secret. Yeah, this is the secret. This is the secret that has been like whispered. You know, they had it in, is the Da Vinci Code a bit too old nowadays to talk about? Do you remember the Da Vinci Code? And they're like, it's the secret of the Da Vinci Code. And like for 2 seconds in that movie, they're looking through like a window and they literally see a whole bunch of people and there's a sexual act going on in the middle, and then they just cut out and like, actually it's like an apple. I actually can't remember. What was the Da Vinci? Did they even tell you what the secret was in the end? I don't think they do they? Do you remember that? They don't tell you what it is, do they? No, of course not. But that's what these guys had, these amazing artists, these phenomenal world teachers. They had a regenerated brain because they knew that within the sexual act, there is an amazing creative force that can be harnessed and used. Yeah? It's kind of like the best way to be spiritual. Anyway, continuing on. So what's interesting here is to explain. So when we are together, when we're sexually united, yeah, in a sexual unity, when man and woman are together, and I'm not talking about just hugging, I'm talking about like penetration. I have to say it. You guys don't understand. I've given lectures, and I've heard the stories about saying I'm having a hard time moving the energy in the alchemy. It's like, well, what's wrong? You try putting some music on or something in the mood. And they're like, no. Well, explain. What's the problem? He goes, well, okay. I don't really want you to tell me. Okay, but tell me. All right. Well, okay. How do you get? Okay, we get undressed. Good start. Yeah. And he goes, and what next? He goes, well, I stand on my side of the bed. I'm like, side. Okay. And then she stands on her side. Opposite ends. Yes. And then we throw the energy at each other. And I'm like, look, I mean, I know it's very personal, but would you like to show me how you do that? And they're like. And I'm like, I'm very sorry. It's sort of a complicated procedure here. It's sort of like a bit more. Sort of back out and then back in, but not the whole way out. You sort of stay in a little bit. And so, yeah, complicated, eh? So that's the thing. I'm talking about, a sexual act, penetration between man and woman together. And what we do is, in any sexual act, whether it is, with this technique of alchemy and transmutation we're talking about, there's always, of course, the physical connection. That's what I've just explained. There's the physical connection always, right? But at the same time, we always actually also have a magnetic connection, which means what happens when you're connected like that, you start to create a strong magnetism between the two of you. And you feel this. That's why there's this intense sensation where you sort of feel just like you're being pulled closer to each other and more and more and more and more and more. Yeah. And this sort of intensely strengthens you because you're actually magnetizing each other. Your sexual organs are charged, and that eventually, the longer the sexual act goes on, the more you charge each other. That's what happens. But at the moment of the orgasm, that's all gone. It just literally, those poles actually reverse and you split away. If you have a strong emotional relationship, you can handle that for a long time. Yeah? That's what I'm telling you. You can. You can handle it for a very long time where you can stay together, continuously losing it and magnetizing together and then losing it, magnetizing and losing it over and over again. But you know what? The end of that path is always the same. Eventually, that constant demagnetizing will tear you apart, which is why if you look in our day and age, divorce is constant. It is ridiculous. People don't stay together at all. Look around you. Everyone's parents split up. And if they don't, they split up within the couple. Separate beds. It starts off with like separate sides of the bed, where you've got like a little, what do you call it? Like a little doona each, And then it's like, he moves around too much at night. So then suddenly separate beds in the same room. And then it's like, you're so loud. I hear you when you go to bed and you're like, so, now it's separate rooms in the same house. And yes, I guess, and we come together perhaps when we're quite drunk on New Year's, and that's about it. And that's what happens. You see, and this is caused by a constant loss of magnetism. Whereas when practicing the alchemy, this never happens. The people who practice alchemy, I know that because we have a higher order, everyone practices alchemy and Gnosis, people are still practicing alchemy well into their 80s. Yeah? Relatively regular practice. I mean, you're getting a bit older, then things are getting a bit harder, you know what I mean? But at the same time, regular practice, once a month perhaps, maybe even a bit more if you're a strong couple. Yeah? But at the same time, continuing that magnetism is always strong. And again, constantly, as we said, the body, the brain are regenerated. It strengthens the body, it strengthens the organs of the body, it strengthens the brain. And in doing so, we live a richer life. Now, this is all just magnetic. And to be fair, there are other schools that teach this. Like for instance, Mantak Chia's school, various schools of Taoism teach this sort of magnetism, yeah? You can always tell because they usually tend to talk mostly about an orbit. Everything's always going round and round, man, round and round. Whereas we're talking more about moving it up. But also because most of these schools will still say, mate, I know, that you're going to blow occasionally, so Eversoften's all right. You just have a little pop, should be all right. And it's not the way we teach it. Because really, there is a third current or a third power that moves when we're united like that, and that's the esoteric. Yeah, that's the, or spiritual, mystical. This word is another word for spiritual, really. And in fact, a lot of authors do use that term. There's a spiritual connection there, yeah? And that spiritual connection is achieved when we transmute. So this in a normal relationship is just karma. That's it. We can talk about it a little bit if people want to. You can ask me questions at the end. But every time that we have a sexual connection with someone, we share a little bit of our karma. We share a little bit of our past with them, yeah? We connect with them. And that's sort of the only reality for a normal sexual connection with someone. And we're doing that. That's the only sort of spiritual reality. Yeah, we have some magnetism, obviously the physical connection, and the really only esoteric or spiritual reality is a bit of sharing of karma between the two of us because we're not aware of the spiritual reality between us. So the couple is surrounded by terribly divine currents. So once we start to transmute, yeah, we're actually beginning to create a spiritual reality between the two of us. Yeah, if you see the old alchemical drawings, they're actually often you see this picture like this of two people with one two legs and then joined at the sex, and sort of both of them are sort of sharing one body. They're united. We actually unite like that. Internally, our spines unite. I think it's in Joffre's picture there at the top. A picture I was sharing a lot online in preparation for this course. So, yeah, what we're doing is we're actually creating a spiritual reality between the two of us. And this is true. As we practice this more often, what begins to happen is that the feeling that I have, the love that I feel for my partner starts to become the same love for my own internal being. Yeah. And so the being is something very important in Gnosis. We say that everybody has their own being, their own divine reality. I haven't put enough space. That we are like a little spark, yeah, that has fallen from our divine being. Our divine's like the sun, and we're like the little spark of that. And we're looking to get back to that being. That's the whole point of our meditative practices, our works, the alchemy practice that we're teaching here, is to take us back to that reality, to have that reality, have that relationship with our being once again. And so this esoteric reality, in one way, okay, it's regenerating the body, but it's also going to slowly, through the love of our partner, bring us closer to our own internal divine being. Through the man, it will bring him closer to his internal divine mother, his internal divine feminine, yeah, seen in all the world's religions. Like the Mother Mary's this beautiful symbol of the eternal feminine inside. And for the woman, it will take her closer to her own individual being, her Atman, her innermost. And that love will eventually be the same love. Yeah? So this particular teaching of alchemy, which I've only just sort of touched the surface of this, yeah, in the simplicity of moving that energy, transmuting it, not losing it, taking it away from the sexual center and actually moving it up and working with it every single day, moving that force. That's what we call one of our three factors in Gnosis. There are three factors of practice. in this teaching. Yeah, that was the first. We call that birth, which refers to the birth of our internal reality, the birth of our interior bodies, the birth of our internal reality and relationship with the being. The second one is what we call death. And the death has to do with the elements that actually try to remove us from the alchemy, which is the elements of what we call the dry mercury, which is the ego. The ego is the various desires inside of ourselves that destroy us from within. To go a little bit further, we say in Gnosis that what we are is an essence, like this little fragment of our internal being. This is our true state inside. But that essence becomes bottled in the ego, the desires of the world, over many lifetimes, and then begins to see the world through its conditioning. Yeah. Love can become, therefore, the love of things. Yeah, rather than a pure love, it becomes the love of other people's praise. Yeah, my own dignity becomes a sort of pride in that I can only be good, or I'm only measured by my peers. Rather than having an internal force of dignity, I actually start to need to be better than other people. Yeah, that's the essence conditioned by the ego. And so we see this. I mean, there's all sorts of different names and terms to this, but this is a big problem. It inhibits the alchemy, and it inhibits us day by day. Yeah, and in fact, to go one step further, this practice of alchemy may only be practiced, say, once or twice a week. Yeah, but the ego attacks us every single day. Yeah, it tries to tear us apart. It creates little problems. It fuels my life with distraction, creates resistance. Every single time I try to start something new, it comes in the way. This is the ego inside of us. And so when we say the death, the second factor of practice in Gnosis, it means the death of the ego. This is the alchemy, which we've been talking about, transmutation of sexual energy. And the third factor is what we call sacrifice. And the sacrifice is exactly as it says. The sacrifice is is working and sacrificing for humanity. Working for other people. Something that is, frankly, lacking very much in society. It's sad. And every time we see it, we're filled with joy. Do you know, when you see someone actually doing something for somebody else, helping someone, we feel happy because we actually see that that's something quite beautiful that moves the whole of society. So the third factor of practice of Gnosis is learning to sacrifice for others. Yeah, learning to sacrifice to pay my duty for living upon this planet. Yeah. Otherwise, I could go take this fantastic teaching I've been given and just go sit up on a rock. I could go up to the lighthouse and find a nice little rock at the lighthouse somewhere and tell you all to get, and I'm just going to go practice this all on my own. Oh, sorry, I'd have to take a woman up there as well, otherwise I couldn't do that. So I'll take a woman and myself, and we'll go off to a cave, and we're going to awaken spiritually, and everybody else can get stuffed. You can see why we need sacrifice, right? Because without sacrifice, you can't have the fraternity, the community, which we have here. Yeah, you can't have the work. And I feel that that's something that's beginning to become lacking in society. It's funny, we're connected so strongly through social media, and yet the feeling of fraternity, of being brothers and sisters with all mankind, seems to be disappearing every single day, despite the fact we like and love things all the time. Yeah? You try to call your friend up and they go, no, I'll talk to you in 3 days. And you're like, come on, man. Can't we just talk now? Like, no, I'll book it in. I'm like, okay. You just follow them on thing instead. So we're missing that sacrifice. And this is what sustained everything. I don't want to go too deep into it, but we see that the whole reason why our society functions is actually from the sacrifice of many others. That's why Australia was such a wonderful place for so long. It still has it still has the echo of that, but it's because of the sacrifice of people building communities, mostly for free. When people came out to start a community like Byron Bay, it's not like the government said, okay, look, we want to start a town out here and we want it to be really spiritual. and we want it to be really lovely. We're going to put it on like a ley line of the energy of the world just for you. And it's going to be lovely. It's going to be fantastic, And so we're just calling all yoga healers and stuff, and we're going to give you some money to go there and just get started, No, what happened was actually people just went there and just started. That's what happened with Watergoes? With Watergoes, the government just gave Watergoes away for free. They said, if you're willing to go out there and there's like enough people out there who've built houses, we'll eventually bring the power line to you. Yeah, and now it's like the most expensive place in the world. You know what I mean? So, but again, it starts on sacrifice. Even I know this is going to sound kind of fishy, but even some of the biggest institutions start that way. Like for instance, YouTube. YouTube started on the sacrifice, right? Think about it carefully. Do you remember old YouTube was all those little 10-minute videos? And again, YouTube started because a whole bunch of people just did stuff for free. That was it. They made funny videos, mostly DIY stuff, just random stuff, whatever, but for free. Just for fun, just so other people could enjoy it. That's it, right? And now people are making billions of dollars off that. Do you know what I mean? It kind of feels a bit ugly. It's like you sort of took all the sacrifice and hard work of people who did everything for free, and then now you're profiting off that. Kind of seems a bit wrong, And now no one just goes on there to have fun anymore. It's all like, oh no, I want to be famous, I'm not okay. I'm sure there's still people doing it, but you know what I mean, right? It's still the allure, When I started the YouTube channel to try and teach a bit of Gnosis online, I felt the allure. It's like, wait a minute, I could become a paid Gnostic missionary. Oh, I might trend, Fantastic, And it says like you put something out there and everyone's like, your hair looks weird. And you're like, oh, stop standing sideways, you look fat. And so, yeah, but anyway, so you know what I mean, sacrifice is very important. That's why it's the third factor of Gnosis. It factors into our practice, yeah? And all of that's tied together by our practices of meditation and works that we do. So before I open up for questions, I just want to mention just quickly about the Gnostic school that we have here. So I've explained a bit about alchemy, but this is Gnosis. So this is this house. This is what we teach here. That's why we're here in Byron Bay. I like Byron Bay, but this is why we're here. And the Gnostic school has many things. There are many things. I saw people walking in. We have the Kabbalah. We teach about runes, even some degree of lamasery, which is what you usually call yoga nowadays. We teach many things. We teach esoteric psychology, mysticism, but it's all very practical. Yeah, everything we're teaching, even this alchemy stuff. Okay, we didn't do an alchemy practical because it just wouldn't have been appropriate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. My wife's not here to make that joke. That's good. But but it is a practical reality. Yeah, I'm giving you. This is how you do it. I'm not telling you there's a very secret thing, and if you give me $3,000, I won't tell you. Do you know? Here's the secret. This isn't it. No. We're teaching something practical. Eventually, I will talk practically about how to work on the ego, how to remove from in yourself. Because I don't know if you've ever tried to change your psychology. You're going to find it's not so easy as it sounds. That's it. I'm just going to give this up now. Oh, give it a shot. But I can teach you methods, that we have here in Gnosis that actually work. It is a very practical teaching. And that's because as a hub, Gnosis, the word Gnosis means internal experience. That's what that word means. When I say to you Gnosis, your Gnosis means an internal experience. Like for instance, if you have an astral experience, like a dream, have any of you guys ever unfolded in the astral? Like have you ever woken up in your dreams like here and now? Do you know what I mean? Just as real. Yes, one. It's an amazing sensation, and it's literally exactly like this. 100%, just like you're standing here, but you're in the world of dreams. And someone tries to tell me that a dream is just an electrical signal bouncing around my brain. I'm like, come on, man. I've been there. It's not like that. It was real. There was something amazing about that. I flew and I felt it. I felt the sensation. I don't know what it's like to fly. Yeah? I've fallen out of a tree, a lot. Mostly when I was young. But my brain didn't just piece that all together. That's nonsense. That's just scientists going, well, I saw some electricity on his brain while he was asleep, so that's what happened, As opposed to the actual reality, that's Gnosis, when I know it to be true. I'm not here to tell you, you all need to come here and believe in Gnosis and believe in alchemy. That's what we do here. I'm telling you to come here and learn this teaching, because that's the other term. Gnosis also means the teachings I'm giving you here. It's three things. It's the internal experience, it's the body of doctrine, the teachings that we have, the books, etc. And then what we have here, me teaching here, the school bringing those together. What I'm saying is to apply these teachings and actually experience them. Yeah. So to do a meditation practice, you have to do it with an open mind. If you come here and go, I'm not interested, well, I don't know why you came. That's the reality. But if we're doing that, then we're not going to. So there has to be at least some attempt at it, to feel it. We meditate with at least like, hope this is going to work. If I meditate going, this isn't going to work, well, it's not going to work. Yeah. So doing the practice and then we actually get that result, that's Gnosis. It's like the person, for instance, imagine like writing a book about fire, You look and you think it's orange, sometimes red, sometimes blue. And you talk all about it. And you mentioned to everyone, it's hot, it's very interesting. It's great stuff, fire. We can cook on it. I'm sure there's books about it, right? And then actually putting your hand in a fire. Do you know what I mean? Feeling it and cooking on it. And that's an experience, That's not Gnosis because it's not a mystical experience. It's not an internal experience, yeah? It's just in the world, but it's the same sort of thing. When I tell you to go to the astral, there's a mantra you can use to the astral. It's the oh my God. Thank you. Okay, obviously Rob's been here before. Pharaon. I'll just cut that out. So Pharaon, which is an Egyptian mantra. Same word, Pharaoh, yeah? Pharaon. Pharaon, which you can use as you're falling asleep, can take you and wake you up in the astral. Yeah? Do it. It may take a while. Try not to use your phone too much before you go to bed. It really sort of roots you in the world and makes it very hard. Sort of overstimulates. So try to sort of leave that, have it in another room or something, try not to use it too much for a few days. And do this beautiful mantra, Pharaon, and it will take you to the astral. And you can have an astral experience. In fact, one of my students, I gave it to him. He was early, first class, just like you guys. And he did this, and he went out 5 times in one night. It was amazing. But he didn't leave his apartment because he lived on the 15th floor of Surfers Paradise, and he got cold feet. He's like, I wanted to fly, but he's like, I just wasn't willing to jump over the railing, because it's so real. It's so real. When you're flying in the astral, it's just like here. So the idea of jumping over railings, it's not that easy. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't, because it's so real. So yeah, do it. Do it, have your own experience, have your own Gnosis, yeah? And then this real, it lives inside of you. Don't believe it, know, yeah? And so the word Gnosis, literally translated from Greek, means knowledge, but it's that kind of knowledge. Not an intellectual knowledge, not something you read in a book, not something that I say, you got to believe this. This is the new thing the universe provides. That's the new knowledge, yeah? No, it's something that you have experienced inside yourself, yeah? Something you know to be true. And so later on, when we do practice, for instance, to experience the illuminating void, to experience the truth, that's what you're doing. You're having your own internal mystical experience of the truth and of the void. Yeah? And then what's important here is that the reason why we have this body of doctrine, the teachings, what we often call the Gnostic Tradition, is to actually have something for that to relate in. Because we could just be a school of experiences, and there's a lot of those around here. It's kind of more out Mullum nowadays, but and there's a lot of these around, where everyone's just kind of doing whatever, trying to have these experiences, doing a whole bunch of drugs, trying to sort of experience different realities, but actually having no idea what they're doing at all, because there's a lot of stuff out there now. There's a lot of spiritual movements, things, there's all of this sort of mystical traditions of every single country of the world are just mixed together now, and they're everywhere. People are doing sweat lodges there, and then back to back with a, chanting ceremony, back to back with a special sort of smoking ceremony, with them doing some sort of microdosing, which is more modern. And this is fine, but you don't actually have any tradition. There's no path. There's a journey, but there's no path. Yeah? Do you understand what I mean? The person doesn't really know what they're experiencing. You've got no reference point. Do you understand what I mean? Whereas in this school here, in this tradition, there is a reference point because behind you are actually thousands of years of people who have gone through, have experienced this, who have gone to the internal worlds, have experienced the various, that picture there of the Kabbalah with all the circles, each of those is a different the very bottom one, Malkuth, that's us, right? Thank you, Brad. That's us, you know what I mean? And the next one up, Brad, the next one up, that's your vital body. That's just the energetic body that sort of just sustains your physical body. You know, Reiki healing, all that stuff functions from there, yeah? Everything else is an internal reality. Yeah, the astral is the one on the left above it. Thank you. Yeah. The next is the world of the mind. But all of these are internal realities that you can experience. Yeah. As you go higher up is the world of the soul, and at the top is the world of spirit. Yeah. And so all of this sort of stuff, right? All of this can be experienced by yourself. And I'll tell you, the practice of alchemy, very, very strong. We can still do it on our own, but that practice gives us creative power that really helps in all of this process, yeah? And it changes the flow of our entire energetic being. As I said before, we are a sexual being, and in doing so, we have, if we change that flow inside of ourselves, the energy always just going out, if we change it so it's going up, that's going to make a huge difference psychologically, internally, everything in our lives. So, as I said, the point of this school here, this point of these classes we're doing is to bring those together for you, yeah? Is to give you, so when you read the book and it says, hey, do this practice, and you go and do it, yeah? And then you get the result, you get the internal experience, suddenly that teaching lives. Yeah? We say that's a teaching with fire. That's a living teaching. It's not a dead teaching. And that's kind of one of the big issues with a lot of the sort of religious schools nowadays. A lot of the teachings are dead, if you understand what I mean. They're sort of saying this, that you've got to believe this, you've got to repeat this, you've got to say that because it's true. But what, am I experiencing it? No. And then the other side, as I said, all the people going experiencing everything, but they got no idea. Like what was that guy said, came to my father's class once, he goes, mate, and he took, I can't remember what it was, he took some sort of hallucinogen, and he said, I experienced my mind. My mind exploded outwards and it became the universe. I was the universe. My mind expanded to the entire size of the universe. But I could just never really get it back together again. You know? And that was how the guy looked. Like, he looked rough, man. He looked like he came out of, literally came out of the bush and then walked into class, out of an actual bush. Like, he had twigs in his hair. Do you know what I mean? Like, his skin was dirty, really dirty. I was like, oh, you just, not like you've been, out of an actual bush. Hectic. Did you walk here? And so, but walked from far away, So, yeah, so this is what I'm trying. So we want to bring that together. So I'm not teaching you something to believe here. I'm teaching you something to be practiced and to experience internally for yourself. Yeah? So it becomes knowledge, something that you know. And then when it's like that, you don't have to go around telling everybody else it's right because you know it's right. You know what I mean? Well, right's the wrong word, but you know. And so there's no point. If someone comes and says, that's all a bunch of nonsense, you go, I'm not going to argue with you because I've experienced it. That's why I can put a reel online and get 60 negative comments of people calling me every name under the universe. And I can be like, it's all right, mate. You know what I mean? Because I know it's real. I've experienced it. You know what I mean? And if that person hasn't, then there's literally nothing I can do. There's no point in me saying, oh, come on. Jesus said this in this book. Read it. I can't. Well, that's not true. He never said it in the book because he didn't write it. But anyway, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, how do we feel about that? Do we have any questions or interested in coming to another class? So that's how the classes are going to go. We meet here. We meet here on Monday nights. We have a big program. 33 weeks, and that's just an introduction. That's just getting started. And you want to come along. It's here every Monday night, 7:30. And every week we go through a different topic. In the beginning, topics very much in line with psychology, and then later on we start talking about things like Kabbalah, and we start talking about the runes, the mysteries of life and death, reincarnation, but again from a practical standpoint, something to be experienced, understood. And of course, in the spirit of practice, at the end of every class, we do a 10, 15 minute meditation that increases as we all as a group can meditate for longer. And towards the end of the course, we're often meditating for half an hour, quite comfortably, because we've all got there. So you don't have to have any prior experience. You don't have to be able to do a full lotus on the ground on your head. That's fine. If you like to meditate that way, go for it. Just not in the class. It's distracting. And so, so we do that and we continue on. After that, we have other courses, other things, retreats, day retreats. But we start with the introductory course, which will be here on Monday nights. Good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
Young man. Thank you. Your questions? You don't have to. We can just do a practice. It's totally fine. My father once said, if there's no questions, it's either because what you said was so perfect that there cannot be questioned, or because it was so incomprehensible and so ridiculous that no one can actually understand enough to ask a question. So I'm not very worried, don't worry. Good? Okay. Let's do a practice, huh?